Alright, welcome back to TKO Takes, and it's now time to complete the final bracket video. And today is the start of March Madness, and I figured I'd give y'all a last minute bracket, give y'all some of my last minute thoughts on the tournament before, the tournament starts and the brackets lock for good. Now, the bracket I make in this video won't, replace my original one. I'm standing by that one, but maybe I'll make some different choices in this one, and we'll see how the last second bracket compares to my main bracket, which I made hours after the bracket dropped. So maybe this will show that you should give some more time and thought before you drop a bracket video. But hey, I had to get some views, and I appreciate the views, y'all. These videos have been doing really good, so I really appreciate y'all. But let's kick things off. I'm still with Duke. Ohio State versus TCU is very close. It's probably the best 8v9 matchup. Bruce Thornton is a tremendous scorer. They also have a good big man inside with Tilly. TCU has gotten some really good wins this season. I really like Brock Harding, good defender, good playmaker. David Punch is a solid scorer inside. And they have this Lithuanian guy who's a very good three-point shooter. Forget his name, but TCU is very good. I think TCU is deeper. They're a better rebounding team. Ohio State is very dangerous because they do have Bruce Thornton. In my original bracket, I did pick TCU, but for this video's sake, we're just gonna flip this because these 8v9 matchups are very hard to predict. But I'm going to go with the team that's beaten Florida and Iowa State, nearly beat Kansas. But in this bracket, we'll go with Ohio State. Actually, I'll stand on TCU. I'll stay on TCU. We'll keep TCU in this one. St. John's, Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa can slow down the game. They're solid on the glass. They have a couple good three-point shooters. So this game can be close. In St. John's, they don't have the best guard play, but their guards are playing better. Like Ian Jackson, Darling has been good all season. Zuby Ejiofor is putting the ball on the floor and making threes now. It's crazy how much progress Zuby's made on this game. Zuby's a really good guy, and I gotta go with St. John's because they have Zuby Ejiofor, who in these early first round games, having a great big man like him is so huge. We saw that in the Texas NC State game. NC State didn't have a guy like that, and Vokatius was able to get some offensive boards and putbacks, and they won by a couple points, and it's because they had a guy like Vokatius. So I got to go St. John's in this game. Kansas, Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist is a decent team. I had Kansas beat Duke in my bracket. I really like Kansas, so I got to stick by Kansas. Now, South Florida, Louisville. I picked South Florida before I found out Michael Brown Jr. was definitely not playing. Looked that up. ESPN posted Michael Brown Jr. will not be playing in the first round. So we're going to stick with South Florida in this matchup. North Dakota State has a bunch of shooters. They could get hot and beat Michigan State, but I really like Michigan State. Had them in my final four of my bracket, so you know how I feel about them. UCLA versus UCF is a close game. UCF is a solid scoring team, not the greatest defensive team. Same can be said for UCLA. I picked UCLA because they've gotten some pretty good wins this season. They beat Michigan State. They beat Purdue. They have a really good starting five. They have a guy in Donovan Dent who, took New Mexico into the second round, had a very close game against Michigan State. They have Bill Odo, who was on the team last year, that also went to the second round, lost to Tennessee. So I'm still leaning towards UCLA, but this is another matchup where if you're making a bunch of brackets, you have to keep flipping these because UCF could easily win as well. I don't see UConn using the Furman, but they do play to their competition's level, so that game could be interesting. And then this game's close. I'll be honest. I was really considering picking TCU against Duke because I think Duke, even though they're the overall 1 seed, I think they are the weakest one. They could be, especially in this region. There's so many good teams: St. John's, Kansas, Michigan State. There's UConn. UCLA could. I mean, there's a bunch of good teams in this region, so there's a lot of ways Duke could lose. But do they lose to TCU? Harding could lock up. I don't think David Punch could lock up Boozer. I don't think they have enough big men that they can rotate throughout the lineup. So I'm gonna still stick with Duke in this matchup. St. John's was Kansas. I went with Kansas, and I ultimately had them beat St. John's, but that could easily not happen because the St. John's team is hot. They get packed the paint against Kansas. Maybe Zuby gets Badunga in foul trouble. So we'll switch this one and we'll have St. John's move on, just to be different from my original bracket. And then I don't think South Florida's deep enough to beat Michigan State. Michigan State has a couple guys off the bench they can bring in where the quality doesn't drop as much, especially a guy like Kurt Tang. South Florida doesn't really have that. They have their starting lineup and then not a whole lot of guys, so I'm going to still stick with Michigan State. UCLA versus UConn. Do I do it? Do I do it? That is the question. UConn could easily use UCLA. The only problem is that they have a Terrace Reed who could grab a lot of boards, but UCLA has so many guards. For whatever reason, UConn's not as good as a defensive team this year. They've been allowing some pretty high scoring games. We're picking UCLA. Okay, we're picking UCLA to beat UConn in this one. Now, it's you should definitely have some brackets where UConn goes far because it's not a good idea to fade on them like I have been doing. I picked Michigan State to beat them. Now I'm picking UCLA to beat UConn, but it's just like, what else have you given me to go off this season? You make it close every single game, and you've got blown out by St. John's twice. So it's like, um, Duke versus St. John's. They do have Zuby Ejiofor, but it's like I feel like you have to have a solid big man and a couple guys that can make three. St. John's doesn't really have that. So I'm gonna go with Duke in this one, especially since I had them lose early. I had them lose against Kansas here, so we'll have Duke move on in this bracket. UCLA versus Michigan State. Last time these two went up against each other, UCLA beat Michigan State. So that's interesting. We'll have UCLA move on. They've done it before, not that long ago. Why can't they do it now? So, and then do I see UCLA beating Duke? Absolutely not. We'll have Duke go to the Final Four. But pretty interesting region here. Now let's go to the other side. The West region, we have Arizona move on. I had Utah State beat Villanova, and I'm still struggling to see how Utah State loses the game. Pretty confident in these first two. I think TCU would beat Ohio State. I'm pretty sure Utah State would beat Villanova. So I like the nines in this bracket. High Point versus Wisconsin. High Point forces a lot of turnovers. They have a couple good guards. Wisconsin has a very good backcourt. Nick Boyd, who went to the Final Four at FAU, and John Blackwell, who's a tremendous scorer. Nolan Winter will be playing, so that's a big proponent for Wisconsin. Does High Point have bigs that can guard out on the three and get open cuts for their guards? I don't think so. We'll stick with Wisconsin here. Arkansas versus Hawaii. Hawaii's very good at not allowing you to shoot threes, but they're not good at guarding a guy like Darius Acuff. They haven't seen a guy like Acuff all season. They're not going to help. And they're eventually going to have to help because Acuff's going to drop 30, and he's going to force Hawaii to back off of their main game plan, which is not to help on the three. And he's going to get guys like Billy Richmond, Malik Thomas open. I think Arkansas definitely beats Hawaii. BYU versus Texas. I'm going to go with Texas in this one. I picked BYU to move on and eventually beat Gonzaga in my bracket. So we'll go Texas because I was so close to picking Texas over BYU. This was before like the Texas beat NC State. They could really beat them because they do have a solid paint presence with Volker Titus, who could potentially cause AJ DeBonsta to not score as much in the paint, forcing them to take more mid-range jumpers. But the reason I'm going BYU in my main bracket is because DeBonsta could get Volker Titus in foul trouble, and then Keba Keita could do some work on the boards. So I think because they have Keita, they'll be able to neutralize Texas. But for this bracket, we'll have Texas move on because I do somewhat like this team. They have a lot of good shot makers and Volker Titus inside. Just sometimes they don't know how to play basketball. And if you press them, then my goodness. But yeah, I'll have Texas move on. We'll have Gonzaga beat Kennesaw State. Miami versus Missouri. I picked Miami in my original bracket. I'm struggling to see how Missouri wins this game. They have Theo Barrett, who's a solid guard. They have Mark Mitchell. But Miami's much deeper. They have Trey Donaldson, who took Michigan to the Sweet 16 last year. Maybe even Elite 8. I forget where that was, where Michigan went. But Miami, Florida, they also have Renew. They have Shelton Henderson. They have a lot of guys that can just flat out score in this team. So I'm going to stick with Miami in this one. And we'll also go for Purdue. And then Utah State could give Arizona some trouble. They are very good in transition. They're going to speed up Arizona. They have some decent bigs on this team. They can make threes. They try on defense. So there's a lot of positives to go with Utah State. So if you're making a crap ton of brackets, definitely have Utah State beat Arizona. But I'm going to stick with Arizona. I picked them as my national champion, so it's just hard to see them lose this early. And then I had Arkansas beat Wisconsin. But could Wisconsin beat Arkansas? I mean, Wisconsin showed they could beat Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois. They've beaten all the good teams in the Big Ten, so why couldn't they beat a team like Arkansas, who's pretty good? But I don't know. It's an interesting idea. For this bracket, we'll have Wisconsin move on. They'll have a big game from their backcourt. Acuff will put up a great fight, but we'll say Blackwell gets a buzzer beater in that one, and they narrowly move on. And then we got Texas versus Gonzaga. I'm going Texas. They have more shot creators than Gonzaga, and Volkatitis could give Graham Ike some problems. So we'll go with Texas to beat Gonzaga in a huge 11 versus 3 upset. And then Miami, Florida versus Purdue. This is an interesting one. Miami does have a couple decent big men, but do they have enough to defend Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough? That's a great question. Because the guard play is pretty even. I mean, the slight edge of Purdue, but it's pretty even. But I'm gonna go Purdue in that one. That's a close game though. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if you did this. I mean, this would be pretty interesting. We might rock with this first bracket. I could see Miami beating Purdue in a slight shocker, and I think Arizona would beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin does. How did Wisconsin beat all these teams with good big men? I don't get it. How do they keep beating teams with bigs? They don't have good paint defense. Do I have Wisconsin beat Arizona in this bracket? Why not? It's just... No, I'll have Arizona move on. It's just... Wisconsin's a true puzzle for real. Anyways, we'll have Arizona go to Elite Eight. And then Texas versus Miami, Florida. We're going to go with Miami. I trust their scores more. I definitely trust their scores more. And they get somewhat match Volkatitis in the paint. So we'll have 1 versus 7 in the Elite Eight. I like that. Does Miami have a chance against Arizona? I don't think so. We'll go with Arizona to make the Final Four once again. Joining Duke. We got 2-1 so far. Let's see if we can mix it up in these final 2 regions. And then we'll have Florida move on. Clemson versus Iowa. I picked Iowa in my main bracket. Could Clemson win? I'd be kind of shocked, honestly. I haven't liked this Clemson team all season. So we're going to stick with Iowa. McNeese versus Vanderbilt. McNeese. I want to say McNeese forces the most turnovers, and they're extremely small. So would Vanderbilt be weirded out that they're facing a team that's built just like them? We'll take a 12v5 here. We'll go with McNeese over Vanderbilt. Why not? And then we got Nebraska versus Troy. We're gonna go with Nebraska because I did pick Troy in my original bracket, which is a huge swing. But I think Troy has the size to give Nebraska problems and the shooters to keep them honest on the outside. North Carolina versus VCU. We'll go with North Carolina because I did pick VCU. North Carolina is still a decent team even without Caleb Wilson. They have Henry Visar, Seth Trimble, who is a very solid scorer. Eric Dixon, solid as well. Kyan Evans fell off a cliff. I mean, he was a starter, and then he's been awful since then. I like VCU. They have a lot of shooters and scorers, so it's tough to pick against them. The only thing is Visar could give them trouble, so we'll go with North Carolina's bracket. Does Power take out Illinois? Nah. In my hundreds of brackets, I do have a couple where Penn wins, but we'll go with Illinois. I really like Illinois. St. Mary's versus Texas A&M. I'm struggling to see how Texas A&M can beat St. Mary's. Unless they just really speed up St. Mary's and make their guards really sloppy, but it's like they're going to pound them on the boards, and they have a solid defense, and they have a couple good scorers like Mikey Lewis. So Texas A&M could win, though. They could speed them up. Just for giggles, do I pick them, even though I don't like them in this matchup? I guess we'll switch it up because I want St. Mary's. We'll go Houston against Idaho. Florida should be Iowa because Iowa doesn't rebound, but Bennett Sturts is a good shooter. They have a couple of good shooters on this team. They could get caught against Florida, but you got to think in that second half they're going to out rebound Iowa to oblivion. So we'll go Florida. Moving on. McNeese versus Nebraska. We're going to go Nebraska because Nebraska is a small team themselves, and they've proven that they can win at a higher level than McNeese. These are two very similar teams, so we'll go Nebraska in that matchup. They'll make a bunch of threes and great passing from their guards. North Carolina versus Illinois. Illinois got to win. They can match North Carolina with the size, and they have much more reliable scorers and much deeper team. You have to go with Illinois against North Carolina. Texas A&M versus Houston. Houston plays pretty fast this year, and they're more scoring oriented. So I think they'll be able to match Texas A&M when it comes to the offense, and they're a much better defensive team. So we'll go with Houston here. And then we have Florida versus Nebraska. Florida's going to destroy Nebraska if they play them because that rebounding margin is going to be filthy. Although Nebraska does rebound well for the team, but what is ranked Mass going to do against Chinelu and Condon? I like Nebraska this year, but it's the size. That's why I picked Troy against them in the first round. But Hoiberg definitely needs to grab some size next year, and they'll be super elite. Then Illinois versus Houston. I went with Houston. Let's go Illinois this time. I really like this Illinois team. They are super deep. They have a lot of good scorers, and they're all right defensively. That's the only thing about them. They're not great defenders, but they have a lot of offense. That's why I went with Houston, because Houston's a good offensive team, and they have good defense. So, but Illinois is a very solid pick here. Florida versus Illinois. Keaton Wagor versus Boogie Fland. Xavier Lee, David Mirkovic, the Visich brothers, Boswell, Jake Davis, Andrei Stojakovic, Humbrickhouse. We'll go Illinois, the deeper team than Florida. And we have a Duke-Illinois matchup in the Final Four. That's going to be a great game if that manages to happen. So hopefully that does happen. Let's fill out the Midwest region. We're going to take Michigan over Howard. Although I am curious, what is Howard's stats? That's not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, we'll stick Michigan though. Georgia, St. Louis. We'll go Georgia. I picked St. Louis in my bracket. Hesitantly, I'm not very confident in either of these teams to win, so I just went St. Louis because they have a bigger chance to explode and have a great night. But I can see Georgia winning. They have a couple good scores. They have Surreal in the paint. They could easily beat St. Louis. Texas Tech versus Akron. Akron's a decent team. Solid scoring, solid defense. I got to go with Texas Tech still because they have Christian Anderson, Donovan Atwell, Petty. I mean, they have a lot of good players on this team. I think they'll overpower Akron. And we'll go with Hofstra over Alabama. Now, Aiden Holloway will not be playing in the first week. He's definitely not playing in the first game because he decided as a high-level athlete that he needs to smoke weed, and it's just dumb. That's just my opinion. But, yeah, we're going to rock with Hofstra because they have solid shooting. They have decent defense, decent rebounding. So they could be Alabama, who without Holloway, I mean, it takes Phylon having a rough game and they're in trouble, which kind of scares me because I took Alabama to the Sweet 16 against Michigan. So, and that's someone who doesn't like Alabama, like I've never trusted teams like them that run and gun. But I figured they would beat Texas Tech because they do have a higher ceiling because they have such good scoring guards. I don't know. I'm definitely gonna have a few brackets where Texas Tech beats Alabama if they beat Akron, which is still a big if. And Tennessee, in about an hour at the time of recording this video, will play either Miami, Ohio, or SMU. I think it's a much closer game that SMU wins. Although I do like Miami, Ohio. It's just they have no defense to guard anybody like, Nate Ament, Jalen Carey off the bench, Felix Okpara. Like Felix Okpara would grab 15 rebounds against Miami, Ohio. So it's tough. We're gonna rock with Tennessee still, and we'll take Virginia against Wright State, and we'll take Santa Clara against Kentucky. I picked Kentucky, and not a confident pick, just because I trust their experience more. Otega Owe could have a good game. Denzel Aberdeen could go off. Colin Chandler could go off. They have more guys that could just go off, and I trust them more than Hamid, Graves. But Santa Clara is a decent team and a rare third bid from the WCC. And we'll take Iowa State against Tennessee State. And let's finish this region. I'm going to take Michigan against Georgia. I don't know how Georgia beats Michigan. Texas Tech versus Hofstra. We'll go with Texas Tech. Still a solid team without JT Toppin. I think they can beat mid-major and Hofstra. Tennessee versus Virginia is an interesting game. You got Jacoby Gillespie, Nate Ament, and Felix Akpar. It's not a deep team. Tennessee is not deep this year. Virginia is much deeper, and that's why I'm still going to pick Virginia to beat Tennessee. Yeah, pretty confidently. I think Nate Ament's going to struggle against the super tall bigs like DeRitter inside, so we'll go with Virginia still. Santa Clara versus Iowa State. I'm gonna go with Iowa State. I really like Iowa State this year. I think this is the year they could make a deep run. Although I did have them lose to Michigan, but that's still an Elite Eight run. I just really like Iowa State this year. They're much deeper. They have guys like Bateman and Heidi, and there's one more guy missing. Torrey, along with their big three, of Joshua Jefferson, of Taman Lipsey, and Milan Momcilovic. It's a great team. They also have Buchanan on the team, so they're a deep team. I think they'll still beat Virginia. Although the thing with Virginia, they could put up a wall, limit Taman's drives inside, which is really important to beat this team. Really limit the drives inside for Jefferson. But you still have to worry about guys like Momcilovic on the three. You have to worry about Torrey. You have to worry about Bateman. You have to worry about Heidi. There's so many options on this team, whereas Virginia has Lewis, a couple of bigs you can pass to in the post, Malik White off the bench, who's a spark plug for them. It's a great game. Virginia versus Iowa State's a great game. Do I go Virginia because I picked Iowa State? I'm going to stick with Iowa State because I'm going to have them beat Michigan in this bracket. That's what we're going to do. I like it. All right, our final four in this last second bracket is Duke, Illinois, Arizona, and Iowa State. We'll start with this Duke versus Illinois game. Duke, Caden Boozer is solid. Cameron Boozer's player of the year. Sarr is a decent 3-and-D wing. They don't have Foster. Maybe he'll be playing by then. I don't know. I don't think so. It's not really a deep team. They have this wide guy off the bench that can shoot a couple threes, as always. Illinois deeper. I'm gonna go with them. Now, are they gonna be able to guard Cam Boozer? Probably not. But is a second guy gonna step up for Duke? I mean, they have Isaiah Evans, who's fantastic. Man, Illinois isn't good defensively. That's a game right there. Let me tell you, Duke versus Illinois is a great game. We'll go with Duke. I think Duke would probably beat Illinois narrowly. And then we got Arizona versus Iowa State. They met in the Big 12 tournament, and Arizona won on a buzzer beater from Bradley. What a shot that he made. We're going to say Iowa State gets the revenge because they hung in there with Arizona, and I think they'll get the revenge. And now they have to take on Duke. Cam Buchanan, Joshua Jefferson, contain Cameron Boozer inside. Can they guard Isaiah Evans on the three? That's a good question. Because Cam Boozer is just so much. I mean, Brown off the bench for since Ngongba's been out. Maybe they'll definitely have Ngongba by then. That helps. We'll go Duke. We'll have Duke win in this last second bracket. The team that I picked to lose against Kansas, so in the Sweet 16. So I think it's only fair. Let's go. Let's do a nice little 67-64 action. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. These are great defensive teams. So we'll have Duke win the last second bracket. And yeah, hopefully that helps you before the bracket does close officially. You get your last second picks in, and hey, maybe this is the perfect bracket, the last one I make. So that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and once again, thank you all for supporting these videos. These have been really fun to make, And yeah, I'll keep making videos talking about the round of 32 to Sweet 16. I'll keep y'all updated on what's happening this year's March Madness. We'll see how my bracket's doing, and it'll be a good time. And also, obviously March Madness is ending soon, so if you're curious about the videos I'll be making, once March Madness is over, I talk about anything, man. Literally yesterday I dropped a video reacting to the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer. So I dig anything like superheroes. I can talk about that all day. I'm really big into music. A couple months ago I dropped a review of Megadeth's new album, so big into music as well. I'll talk about anything pop culture related. It's called TKO Takes. I give my takes on everything. And a big one I'll start doing immediately. UFC, besides basketball, is my favorite sport. So UFC, boxing, MMA, I'm really big in the combat sports. So if y'all want to hear my takes on all that, then definitely make sure to let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely start pumping those videos out, because I have to find purpose after March Madness. I have to come out of my little bear cave and um, flap some wings. This is definitely my time to end the video. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and God bless you all.